This is a story about how one small mistake can lead to tragic consequences. A college student was heading home and vanished without a trace. Her smartphone's signal disappeared on the outskirts of the city. It was only thanks to surveillance cameras that police were able to quickly solve the case and uncover the shocking truth. In this video, we'll tell you the story of what happened to Samantha Josephson. Samantha Josephson was born in 1998 in the American city of Princeton, New Jersey. Soon after, her sister was born, and the family decided to move to Robbinsville, a small community near New York. After graduating high school, she enrolled at the University of South Carolina in the city of Columbia. Even though the university was over 1,000 kilometers from home, she wanted to get the best possible education in political science. She also studied abroad in Barcelona. During her studies, Samantha met a guy named Greg, who was a year older than her. They started dating and remained in a close relationship even after he graduated and moved back home. After college, Samantha planned to continue her education and attend Drexel University's law school in Philadelphia. She had even received a full-ride scholarship that would have covered the entire cost of her tuition. On March 29, 2019, she received some sad news from home and was in low spirits. Samantha asked Greg to come visit her, but he had urgent matters to attend to. Besides, he was scheduled to visit in just a few days anyway. Greg suggested she go out with friends to take her mind off things. It was a Friday night, and many students were planning to head to the city's downtown area, where the most popular bars were located. Samantha had made many friends during her time at school, so she easily found a group to go with. Around midnight, she arrived at a bar called the Bird Dog. Her friends were having a good time, but Samantha was still feeling down. She spent most of her time texting Greg, and at around 2 a.m., she wrote to him that she was heading home. She called an Uber and then called Greg to pass the time while waiting for her driver. When the car pulled up, she said goodbye to him and hung up the phone. Just a few minutes later, Greg noticed something strange. He and Samantha had an app installed that allowed them to track each other's phone locations. After a little while, he opened it to check if she had made it home, only to see her phone moving in the opposite direction of her apartment. Greg sent her several messages, but they all went unread. He started calling her, but there was no answer. Meanwhile, her smartphone was moving further and further away from her home, and about 30 minutes later, the signal disappeared.
Greg decided to call her friends, but none of them had been in contact with Samantha either. He then thought that maybe she had made it home but accidentally left her phone in the car. Figuring she would get in touch in the morning, he went to sleep. However, by morning, there was still no word from Samantha. She was supposed to work a shift at a local cafe where she had a part-time job. Greg called the cafe and found out that Samantha never showed up for work. At that moment, her boyfriend and friends began to seriously worry that something terrible had happened to her. At around 2 p.m., they filed a missing persons report with the local police department. They also called all the local hospitals, but Samantha wasn't at any of them. Her friends also walked up and down the main street where the bar was, looking for any clues, but found nothing. Greg, who by then had arrived in the city, went to the bar himself. He knew some people there who allowed him to look at the surveillance footage. Soon, he managed to spot Samantha on the recordings. At 2:06 a.m., Samantha was captured on the surveillance cameras outside the bar. She was talking to Greg on the phone while waiting for her Uber driver. When the car pulled up, she hung up and got inside. Greg took the recording and went to the police station to show it to the detectives. However, shocking news awaited him there. He was led into a room where Samantha's parents were already sitting. One look at them was enough to understand that something truly awful had happened. The police informed him that Samantha's body had been found a few hours earlier, 100 kilometers from the bar, near a small community called New Zion. A local hunter had discovered her in a field. For Greg, this news was a complete shock. He realized that on that night, using the tracking app, he had been watching in real time as his girlfriend was abducted from a busy street. Later, medical examiners determined that she had been stabbed approximately 120 times. Some of the wounds were defensive, indicating that Samantha had tried to shield herself with her hands. The police were faced with a question: who could have done such a thing? Thanks to the camera footage from outside the bar, they identified the model of the car she got into.
Furthermore, Samantha's friend opened her laptop, checked her email, and discovered that the Uber driver she had requested that night had canceled the trip and never arrived at the location. It then became clear that Samantha had gotten into a complete stranger's car, mistaking it for her Uber. The footage shows her getting into the back passenger seat almost immediately after the car pulled up. The driver didn't even have time to park. The police's main task was to find this vehicle. They considered the possibility that the driver might not have been involved in the murder, but he would certainly have useful information. At the very least, he could tell the police where he had dropped her off. Detectives reviewed other footage and saw the same car circling the bar several times before finally pulling up to the exact spot where Samantha was standing. Police issued an alert for a late-model black Chevrolet Impala. Given that this was their only lead, all patrols put significant effort into finding the car. Fortunately, they didn't have to wait long. 26 hours after Samantha's murder, at 3:30 in the morning, police officers spotted a matching vehicle driving right in front of them. This was just a few blocks from the bar. For the first few minutes, the officers simply followed the Impala before signaling the driver to pull over. He complied. The officers asked him a few questions. Then a policeman asked the driver to step out of the car, which he did. However, as soon as the officer stated the reason for the stop, the driver took off running. The fugitive tried to escape, but he didn't get far.
All right, man. Who's smoking the marijuana?
I had smoked some earlier, sir, when I was at home.
All right.
Yes, sir. I got it.
All right, man. You got to step on out, man.
All right.
All right, here's the deal. Wakama. Doors blocked, 500 block.
Alarm on his radio, and arriving patrols apprehended the man. As soon as the police ran his ID, it became clear why he was so reluctant to speak with law enforcement. He was 24-year-old Nathaniel Rowland, who had an impressive criminal history for his age. He had several tickets for not wearing a seatbelt and a conviction for drinking and driving, but that was all minor compared to his later crimes. In October 2018, he was a person of interest in the kidnapping of a woman. In that case, two men ran up to the victim's car at a stoplight, got inside, and forced her to drive to a nearby ATM. There, they demanded she withdraw all the money from her bank card, after which they forced her to drive to her home. The criminals stole various valuables from the residence and fled. A few hours later, Nathaniel sold some of the stolen items at a local pawn shop. He was arrested and charged with theft of under $2,000, but investigators were unable to charge him with carjacking or kidnapping. Detectives also uncovered one crucial fact. Nathaniel grew up in an area near New Zion, the very place where Samantha's body was found. Examining Samantha's phone was waiting for them in the glove compartment. Additionally, the car contained numerous cleaning supplies that had been used in an attempt to wash away the blood stains. This was more than enough to charge Nathaniel with murder. And during a search of his girlfriend's home, where he lived, detectives found even more clues: a knife with traces of blood, as well as several more packages of cleaning supplies. Traces of blood were even found under Nathaniel's fingernails and on his sock and bandana. Experts quickly determined that all of this blood belonged to Samantha. This wealth of evidence was sufficient to charge Nathaniel with kidnapping and murder. The trial began on July 20th, 2021. The prosecution called more than 30 witnesses and added important details to the case. Street camera footage showed Nathaniel driving back and forth for nearly half an hour near the street where he later picked up Samantha. This suggested that he was intentionally looking for a victim. As he was driving near the bar where Samantha was standing, something interesting happened. Another car stopped near the parking lot, and she walked towards the passenger door, apparently thinking it was her Uber. However, the car drove on, and Samantha stepped back. Literally seconds later, Nathaniel, who had seen the whole thing, pulled up to Samantha. This tells us that he may have been acting with cold calculation. The girl in front of him had almost gotten into a stranger's car, so she might get into his. It seems this was exactly his plan. As soon as Samantha got into the car, the driver activated the child's safety locks, which meant the doors could only be opened from the outside. We can only guess how events unfolded after that. Nathaniel might have attacked her immediately, and no one on the street would have heard her screams. He also could have driven away from the club before attacking her. We don't know because Nathaniel himself refused to admit guilt. A few hours after the murder, Nathaniel was captured on the cameras of 2 ATMs, where he attempted to use Samantha's bank cards. However, all of his attempts failed. On July 27, 2021, the court delivered its verdict. Nathaniel was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. The judge noted that with such a mountain of evidence, he had no chance of escaping punishment.
Samantha's parents, who attended every single hearing, were devastated. Even though the killer was brought to justice, their daughter was gone forever. But they found the strength to do something positive for society. In Samantha's memory, her family founded an organization dedicated to improving the safety of rideshare services like Uber. Through close work with lawyers and politicians, Samantha's parents successfully advocated for the passage of several important laws in South Carolina, and later, across the entire United States. According to the new requirements, rideshare drivers were obligated to display license plates on the front of their cars to make them easier for customers to identify. Furthermore, penalties were introduced for those who impersonate licensed drivers for such companies, including a hefty fine and up to 30 days in jail. Another law requires companies to issue special decals with driver information, including their photo, name, and license plate number, to be displayed on the car windows. In addition, every driver must have a decal with a special code that passengers can scan with their smartphones. Later, a law was passed requiring all drivers to have illuminated signs indicating their affiliation with a specific company. Finally, Samantha's parents successfully lobbied for a federal law in Congress. It requires all rideshare drivers to have front license plates, an illuminated decal on the windshield, and scannable QR codes on the side windows. Through these efforts, the family achieved significant legislative changes to ensure that their daughter's tragic story would not be repeated. As for Greg, he changed his career path and became a criminal lawyer, representing victims of crime in court. To sum up this story, there is only one thing to say. Our world is full of criminals, and one can never let their guard down. Samantha didn't check the car or the license plate of the driver who pulled up to her. Tragically, that mistake cost her her life. Stay safe, and thanks for watching.